Welcome back. Welcome to another episode of Nain Shorts here in the den of the Wandering Ronin. Right? That was your name? Yeah, one of those. Anyways, before we begin with today's topic, just want to remind you that CJ Johnny Oliva is putting on a seminar along with Twin Tiger Self-Defense Academy in Brentwood. That's where it's going to be this coming Sunday, March 16th. It's only $40. And not only do you get to spend 4 hours learning from a man who's just a well of knowledge from various martial arts, including the one he created, and weapon forms to go along with that. He's doing a stick and knife, I believe, is his seminar. And it's going to be a great time. But more importantly, it's for a great cause. A young man is in need of a new liver, and in order to get that, well, money is always needed, and that's where the proceeds are going to go to from this seminar to this young man on his journey to get a new liver and hopefully live a long and healthy life. So if you can, please make it out there. We've been talking about it for a while, so definitely look out for that. Facebook, you can find CJ Johnny Oliva or Twin Tiger Academy, and you can see all the information, as well as we'll probably put the poster somewhere here. Anywho, so keep that in mind. We'll definitely be there just to support, and hopefully this gets to the ears of the people that need to hear it. So spread, share, do all that, help spread the word. We definitely appreciate it. Now, training, right? That's what we do. That's what we do our best to get better at. Or is it the training we get better at, or is it the art we get better at? Which are we really focused on? And does that really change the way that we go about and approach things? We've been talking about the idea of what works for you, what doesn't work for you, how do you make it work for you, and how do you not make it work for you, and what are the criteria really that go into determining what is best for you, the individual. It's all about the individual. You hear stories about people who get so far in martial arts and then quit, or people who try a martial arts but can't really get into it, and then you've heard the phrase that the martial art finds you. How does a martial art find you? What are the criteria that determine whether or not that is the right martial art for you? And a word that pops into mind is adaptability. Now, is it adaptability of the art itself? Less so. I mean more in the sense of, can you physically do the things that art is asking you to do? Now, depending on where you start your journey in your martial arts in your life, whether you're still very young and pliable, whether you are fit, whether you're not fit, whether you are very tall, very short, very small, very round. I mean, these things do play a factor in how we're able to physically do certain things. And if we just can't do it, our bodies can't move that way, are we really going to stay there and work on something if we just simply can't do it? So, one of the criteria of finding the right art, finding what really works for you, is, can you perform the movements? Can you actually do the things that you're being asked to do? I think that's key number one. Now, why are you doing it, right? We've always talked about the why behind things. What's the purpose of going into martial arts in general? Self-defense. But they're not the only reason to do martial arts, and it's not the only reason why people continue to train martial arts. But in general, it is a form of self-defense. Whether you use it for that, whether it's more for just the love of the art, whatever the case may be, that's still kind of prevalent in the whole aspect of training, right? It's there, just by the name itself, martial. But anywho, if that is the case, if that is your main goal for self-defense, well, then shouldn't it be something that's practical to you? Like, can you actually use, let's say, a majority of what you're learning in actual self-defense situation? And I think that one of the reasons why is the arts that seem to continue or seem to be the most widespread are the ones that keep things fairly simple in both adaptability, which is being able to do the movements, but also the practicality in those movements and how to use them outside of what the class entails it to be. Very simple: punching, even kicking, which, other than low kicks, how practical are they in combat? If you're a really, really good kicker, I'm sure you can make it work. But is that everybody? Is that the majority of people will get as good as you are in your kicks to be able to use them effectively in a self-defense situation? Again, going back to the adaptability of things, you may be really, really good at something, but can you get other people to be just as good as you? Regardless of what their body type is, regardless of what their background is, and regardless of where they are in their life journey. Are they full of aches and pains? Are they young? Are they flexible? Are they just completely out of shape and young? So, can you successfully build somebody else up as an instructor to do the things that you do just as well as you do them? We have all these theories and concepts of, you keep what works, you throw out what doesn't. We've been cross-training more so now. Back in the day, you could only train the one thing. People would get mad if you left the school to train with somebody else. You'd be, excommunicated. All these things, all these stories of these well-kept secrets in schools and organizations that were big and were huge and had a great impact in the martial arts world that are no longer viable ways of doing things. They weren't adaptive to the changes, to the way people are now learning, to the way communication is happening and the information that we're receiving via all these different avenues. So those arts maybe aren't as popular anymore. They're not as widespread as they once were because they lacked that adaptability. And the individuals just no longer were around that could adapt to it. They no longer had that only the physicality, but also the mentality to say, I'm just going to hit hard and bang and then grow old and have all these aches and pains and surgeries because that's how hard martial arts was, and it doesn't necessarily need to be. That's a whole different conversation in itself, but let's stick to the adaptability part of it. Is that a viable way to then continue training? No, things have to change. Things are changing. Things continue to change. And if the art itself can't adapt to those changes, then will it last? And it doesn't have to go as far as saying the art itself to change to the masses, but what about the individual? Let's say that 80% of your class has a very similar body build or started at a similar age and has been able to be molded into what they are now, but let's say we have the baseline. A majority of people are a certain height, a certain weight, and can perform the art fairly well, can do all the moves, and can do them effectively. You have a good base, a large enough class to say this is going to continue because I've passed it on. And you have somebody that comes into your class that wants to try it out that doesn't come close to any of those criterias. Is either way taller, way smaller, way thinner, way bigger, whatever the case may be, but they just don't fit the physical baseline of your class, of your art. Would your art be able to adapt to that individual person's way of doing things? That's a hard question to answer because unless you've actually done it and done it successfully and then repeated the process, can you really say your art can do that? Can you really say your teachings were able to cross that boundary of not being able to perform the movements, that adaptability? And then if you can't, can you? Now that you're thinking about it, now that you have the idea in your head, can you modify what you do change the way you teach things to then adapt to that individual. Because that's the reason why we have weight classes in tournaments and in competition. It's because those differences affect the way we're able to do things, affect the way that we hit or move or can perform certain things. MMA has become incredibly popular because certain things work within that environment, that tournament idea, and certain things don't work as well. Some people can make things work that nobody else has seen before, that nobody else can make work, and that's the individual. They can do that. But does that mean that it should be for everyone else? And you as an individual, how do you determine what works for you? And honestly, that's really, I think, the most basic way that you can do it. First of all, can you even perform the movements? And two, does it make sense to you? And the reason it has to make sense to you is because that's where the practicality comes into play. It has to be practical. It has to be something that you could use. And if it doesn't make sense to you, well then, are you really likely to use it? Are you really likely to then be able to use it effectively? And these are the things that we have to consider then when we are looking for that art, or as instructors, how do we keep our teachings going? Can we continue to be rigid in the way that we do things and say, this is the way that we do things, this is the way that it's been done, this is how I was taught, this is the way that my people were taught, and this is the way I'm going to continue teaching? Will it last? Can we move on to the next generation doing so? Or can we still learn as practitioners, as instructors, to then be adaptive, not to the art, but having the art being adaptive to the person that wants to learn? I mean, student retention alone would probably be a lot better, but is it possible? Can we do it? Can we keep what works in the way that we teach and throw out what doesn't? Now, do we necessarily have to throw it out, or maybe just put it in the back burner and saying it's not useful right now? Because there's a lot that still is really good, that still needs to continue, the traditional stuff. But how do we keep on teaching and growing if we don't adapt to the changes? Sometimes those changes don't come in the form of the group, but the individual. The individual that wants to learn, and that individual may have to struggle a little harder to get it, but maybe we can meet them halfway and make it a little easier for them to understand why they're doing what they're doing, why they can then modify, or how they can then modify what it is that they're doing to suit their needs, their size, their ideas, and what they're ultimately going to use this information for. Just a thought. How do we then teach the individual the things that we know and hold dear to our heart? And maybe we can question, why do we hold it dear to our heart? Why are we so stuck in the way that we're doing things? Is it simply because that's what we were able to do physically? Or maybe it just made sense to us, so that's why we stuck with it. But is there more? Is there stuff outside of it? And can we use that information to better teach our students, and also as practitioners learn how to improve ourselves even further? So again, just ideas and thoughts. Let me know what you think. How does your art adapt to the changing of the environment, and also the students when they come in and they don't necessarily catch on right away, when they can't necessarily perform the things right away? What are the other ideas and concepts that you add to that so they can succeed, so they feel accomplished, and they're more likely to stick around and advance beyond just the basics? Anyways, thank you for joining me on another one of Nain Shorts. Hope you enjoyed it, and as usual, I'll see you on the next one. 3, 2, 1, cut!